All right. Good evening and welcome to the Finance Commission meeting of Thursday, May 1st, 2025. We are meeting here in Town Hall. So first order of business this evening is approval of minutes from our April 10th meeting. Is there a motion?
Second.
And we'll let Eric second that one. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Q3 review. Molly Ahern is here with us from the finance office. Molly, you want to just take us through a quick summary of how things are looking through Q3?
Sure, happy to present the summary.
Thank you.
So we can start with the revenue side, and as of the end of March, the full year revenue is projected to be slightly higher than expectations. Looking towards investment earnings, those remaining strong. The building permit revenue is currently below projections. However, the building department is anticipating a significant permit soon, so that will bring it more in line with the budget. Transfers such as the override stabilization, the indirect charges for enterprise fund, those are booked towards the end of the fiscal year, so they're expected to be fully realized by year end. Departments that are currently reporting below the 75% threshold, which is where we'd expect to be at the end of March, they're primarily affected by the timing of payments, so these are more like seasonal activities, so those should also meet budget levels by the end of the fiscal year.
Excellent, thank you.
Moving over to the expenses side, as of the end of March, no major concerns. Looking at the Treasurer's Department budget, it includes fees for ambulance billing services, and as these increase, it also increases in line with revenue source. In the elections and registrations budget, we're currently reviewing to ensure proper allocation following the most recent town meeting to make sure things got charged where they're supposed to be. The snow and ice removal budget, that overage is planned to be addressed at the May special town meeting through an internal transfer. And lastly, the labor costs under the traffic control / fire alarm budget. The accounting department will review these charges at year end to make sure that they're properly allocated to the correct line item.
Yeah, that would,
Okay.
it's not a large amount of money, but it's a large percentage.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right.
Okay, nothing that we know of that would require an allocation from the reserve fund at this point?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, good.
All right. Are there any questions about the third quarter report?
No, just noting on the revenue side that the auto excise taxes are above last year, so I guess people are buying new cars. But the excise taxes for meals, rooms, and jet fuel are below last year, so I guess we're not eating out, renting hotel rooms, or flying airplanes as much. And I guess, yeah, and investment income is actually even ahead of last year, which is well above the budget.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
So the transfers in, that's where, like you mentioned, the override stabilization money and stuff like that would go.
Closer to year end, the entries would be made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. All right. So then the next item on our agenda is annual town meeting and special town meeting articles. And this is in kind of preparation for getting ready for our pink sheets. So I just, looking through our minutes from last time, I think the only article that we had not yet taken a vote on was the one related to the water tanks. Is that correct? And that was just because it was, as of April 10th, our meeting, that was really new. We didn't have much information on that. So Mr. O'Neill sent us all an email today with a little bit of information about that, Basically, if we don't enter into a contract right by the end of June, then we risk losing the state
Mhm.
reimbursement money. And so, there were a bunch of unanswered questions back in April 10th, but I think they've been a little bit more answered now.
Mhm.
So, the request for that is, which article is that? Oh, 7, thank you. Okay, and actually at that time it was a $3.5 million placeholder, but now the actual warrant has come out, and then, and the yellow sheet as well, and, Mr. O'Neill said it's $3.7 million, right?
Yeah.
A request for $3.7 million, which would be borrowed, and it would be borrowed near the end of the project, so likely in 2027.
Yes.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
can do that. We can start something that we think is going to cost us more than what we've appropriated, and wait
No, we would have to approve the borrowing before you
To
start
authorize it,
it,
yeah.
to
Right.
authorize it.
All
right.
But then,
Okay.
they wouldn't actually do the borrowing until the money was needed.
Okay,
Right, they can't sign a contract unless they have available
Available
funds to do
funds.
that.
right,
Yep, so,
okay.
I mean, looking at it, I mean, the bottom line is that the existing tanks are well past their useful life. And
Yes.
Even though
I don't want to be washed away.
Yeah, even though I'm concerned about the additional cost, which may be for a lot of reasons. It could be labor costs, it could be related to the to tariffs, because, a lot of the tanks are made out of steel,
Steel, right,
obviously,
yeah.
and other types of metals. So, reluctantly, I think we have to present this, and let town meeting make its decision.
Would someone like to make a motion regarding this?
Can I have one question?
Oh,
first?
sure.
I don't, we sort of got away from taking the low amount of money, the lower bid.
Right.
And we're doing that, correct? We're taking the lower bid?
I
from
believe
what
that this
understood?
number
the low
does
bid.
represent the
Right.
lower bid.
Yes, the low bid is just
But
higher
I
than
think
the
that,
estimate.
I think there was, I think there was still like a qualification process. It's not just like anybody who
Yeah.
came in off the street and said like, we'd do it for cheaper.
I know.
Is gonna get
yeah.
the job.
But
There's,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I was a little concerned that we were going to take the lowest bid. It just,
It's the lowest responsible bidder, not just anybody. You have to be the lowest qualified responsible.
Yeah,
You
no,
have to meet all the
I-
requirements and all that kind of stuff.
I
Yeah,
understand
there's
that,
there's
but-
a set of requirements, so what is this, is it DCAM, I think?
Yeah.
That you can use to determine whether the individual who proposes the bid is in fact a responsible bidder.
Okay.
And they usually have to be qualified for the type of work and for the amount of the work. So, certain
Okay.
people will say, I'll do plumbing work up to $1 million, so they can't bid on a $2 million contract. So
Okay.
they can do this type of work up to that dollar, they have a limit that's at least the amount of the bid that they're putting in, that they've been approved for.
and it wouldn't surprise me if the state also has some stay in this since we're going through their program,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I used to work in that program, years ago. I mean, it's changed since then, but they basically go for the lowest responsible bidder.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
specification, they
Just-
have to meet the state's requirements,
Yeah.
because that's where the funding's coming from.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that we're not doing something quickly and
Right,
Yeah,
in order
Yeah.
to get started. But-
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
I'll make a motion to approve $3.7 million additional.
All right.
Second?
All right. Any further discussion? I'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Okay. I don't believe there's anything we need to talk about with annual town meeting. I will be working on the presentation for that. And so maybe we can actually talk a little bit about, after we get through the pink sheets and stuff like that, maybe we can just talk a little bit about any recommendations you have about how to go about that presentation. But I will be sharing a draft with you and soliciting feedback.
Good.
I think mostly we have, we'll be using graphics from the budget book anyway.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of special town meeting articles where the Board of Selectmen took positions that were different than what we had recommended. And so we should probably just briefly discuss those. So the first one is the Special Education Stabilization Fund, Article 2. And at our last meeting, we had approved a recommendation for $880,959, which would, that number was chosen because it would bring that account up to the limit that's established by the state. But the Board of Selectmen in their yellow sheet recommended reducing that number to $300,000. We obviously are the ones who make the motion at town meeting. As it stands now, we will make the motion for the full $880,959. But if, I just wanted to raise the question to this committee to see if there's thoughts on taking a different action.
So we would make the motion for the full amount, then the selectmen would have an amendment, would propose an amendment to reduce it to 300? Is that the
Assuming
plan?
we make the motion for the full amount, the selectmen have said that they will make an amendment to
Okay.
reduce.
There you go, there's the choice, so.
I mean, I'd just as soon go with the amount we previously had voted on, and let town meeting decide which way they'd like to go. I mean, the yellow sheet, the draft one, I think will have to be modified to reflect our original number.
Well, I mean, the yellow sheet just is recommended.
No, excuse me, I'm sorry. I mean, the pink sheet, sorry.
Yes.
That's
We will,
my mistake.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The pink sheet, and then if we stay, assuming we stay with that original number in the letter part of the pink sheet, I will specifically make sure that we call out
Yeah.
that this number
Yeah.
is different than
Yeah.
what was shown in the yellow
Yeah,
sheet.
there may have to, in addition to that number being changed, there may have to be some changes to some of the free cash totals that are in here.
Right,
But, should be pretty straightforward.
right,
And again, let town meeting decide which way they'd like to proceed.
yes. I believe that we had good justification for why we would recommend going
Yep.
to the full amount. I think that this is a really unusual situation where we have a very large amount of free cash. It seems unlikely we're going to find another opportunity that is such a good opportunity to fill this fund up.
Mhm.
And although I've heard the argument that we haven't needed to use this fund, maybe it doesn't need to be at its maximum value. We've only had it for a few years. We, in the past, have seen significant fluctuations in special education costs. And I personally am somewhat concerned about what may happen with the state budget in the coming years. I think that the state's going to be under some financial pressure and may not be able to afford to continue to fund, for example, circuit breaker at 75%.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago that it wasn't reaching that full threshold.
Yeah, and at least this year, special education costs, net special education costs only went up approximately $70,000, but we've had a few years in the recent past where it's been over $1 million of an
Yes.
increase. And that's a tough one for the budget.
Right, and that means that if the school's total budget is capped, what ultimately that means is that when there's a significant increase in special education, that the only place to take that money is from the general education
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah, and it's also my understanding that the Special Ed Stabilization Fund In order for the schools to access it, it has to be voted upon by the selectmen, I believe.
Yes, in addition to the
So
schools.
they do have
school
control.
committee,
Yeah, they do have some control over this.
Yes, absolutely.
So our logic is bring it up to the maximum. Their logic is bring it to an even million.
Right.
That's your choice. I mean, and
Yeah.
so
Right.
which one do you think makes more
Yeah.
sense?
Yep. Okay. So,
So when you're talking about this, are you going to mention the fact that, you know, the state may actually have to cut back on some of the things that they have been giving us to us in the past?
so that's a
for our
great
schools?
question, right? So, at town meeting, when we call for Article 2, I will, make the motion that will say FinCom, moves to allocate free cash in the amount of 880,000, whatever the exact language is to this account. And then I will be called upon to speak on the motion,
Yeah.
and so I will say that FinCom has voted unanimously for this, and then I will give some brief
Okay.
reasons for why we think that that is appropriate. So I think the things I was just kind of mentioning would be included in
Okay.
the summary.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that part of it was
Yeah,
included.
so I will also send all of you a draft on that as well,
Okay.
because I
Okay.
think that that's something that's important. We
Okay.
need to agree. I mean, a lot of these is just going to be like, well, we said we approved this unanimously, and it seems like there's no controversy, and so I don't need to do
Mm-hmm.
a presentation about every single
Yeah. Yeah.
article.
Right.
Yeah.
But on that one, I think it is important to
Yeah.
make it clear what our position is.
Okay.
Okay. The other one that I wanted to talk about is the the capital stabilization fund. The Board of Selectmen voted to include an article for the creation of the capital stabilization fund, but they voted not to include an article to fund the capital stabilization fund. So I don't know if that impacts our thinking on this, and how we might explain to town meeting that we're asking for a vote for something that will not include funding at this time.
Well, I think we can add that we would expect to, again, recommend an article in the fall town meeting to fund it.
Yes.
I think it's important that we establish the fund, and in the interim between now and the fall, we work out any details or any questions about what constitutes a capital issue, a capital item, because that's one of the concerns Mr. Plasko, as I recall, had. Again, I think we have some definitions of capital, in capital outlay policies. But I think, we could certainly work those out. I don't think those are overreaching that would prevent us from being able to, appropriate money into the fund and be able to obligate it.
We have started the conversation around the definition of capital things with regard to the capital outlay policy.
Yeah.
You will remember that the capital outlay committee voted on updates to the capital outlay policy in August of 2023. This board also took a vote to approve those changes in August of 2023. The school committee voted to approve those changes in, I believe, September of 2024. I do not believe that the Board of Selectmen has taken any vote on that matter.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's something that we could also discuss
Yep.
with them.
Okay, good.
So are we going to make reference to how much money we were going to put into that fund?
That's a good question. I mean,
I don't know if I think the important thing is to set the fund up.
Okay.
I don't want to get people concerned about, are we putting too much in, or we want to put not enough in. The important thing, I think, is really to establish the fund, and then we could move forward.
okay. So everyone wants to just stick with our initial vote on that and then, okay. That sounds good. So then the pink sheets, Jeff and Molly helped provide a draft of the pink sheets. Molly, we will ask for the Article 2 to be updated to reflect the $880,959, and then obviously that will flow through to other places and make changes. It will mean that so the order of this meeting, just so we're all clear, is we're going to open the annual town meeting, but then we're going to move immediately to special town meeting 1. Those are all of the articles that have an impact potentially on the annual meeting because it impacts free cash and things like that. So at the end of the special town meeting, we would be looking at roughly $18 million in free cash. And then at the annual town meeting, which would be held immediately after special number 1, then we would be recommending the $7.45 million in free cash, which will then bring us down to around $10.5 million in free cash. That would then roll over to the following year. We had talked previously about how we anticipate approximately $5 million in capital outlay requests in the fall. But that's a very rough number. Yeah, it's just an order of magnitude kind of number.
Yeah, one of the wild cards in that is what we do in the fall for a fire truck, which could be significant. I mean, when we bought the ladder truck 12, 13 years ago, it was around 1.3 million. Now it's potentially up to 3 million.
Yeah.
So I think we should I'm sure capital outlay will give a lot of thought to whether we want to use cash for that or borrow or a combination of the two.
Right. After we close the annual, then we'll be moving on to special town meeting 2. Many of the items in that are not at all financial. There are a few that are kind of like financial adjacent, things like approving, authorizing like a 5-year term for contracts rather than a 3-year term. I just wanted to ask you if you think that there's anything in there that the FinCom should actually take a position on. We won't take a position on the zoning articles as a group, and we won't take a position on the moderator's term. But is there anything in there that you guys think we need to?
I do think that we should support going to the 5-year term for a contract.
I'm happy to discuss that. So let's just
That's
go
Article
through.
6.
Number 6.
Okay, so can we start at the beginning and make sure that I didn't? That was just the one I thought of off the top of my head.
Okay, which one
Okay, so
was it?
Article 1 is the moderator one. That we won't take a position on. Article 2 is entering into a pilot agreement with Tangent Development.
Wait a minute.
That-
Actually,
Which one are we looking at?
Actually,
Number 2.
number 2, that one involves
Right,
a payment
What does,
over 25,
the pilot agreement with
25
Tangent
period, I think?
Development
Yeah.
LLC.
Yeah, I think we probably should,
Take a position on
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
I agree. I don't have. Do we have the yellow sheets
Oh, for the school.
here?
I might have.
I printed out the yellow sheets
Yeah.
for special town annual.
Oh,
Yellow sheet
thank you
should be
so
in the-
much, Deborah.
in the back of this.
It's just not on yellow paper.
Is it in the back of this?
Yeah,
Oh, yep.
yeah.
Oh, look at that. Okay, excellent. That's easier to work from. Great, okay. So, Article 1, we are not going to take a position on, but Article 2, okay, is the proposed amount of the pilot agreement is $481,008 over 25 years.
Yeah.
This does not require a motion from FinCom, but I do think it would be appropriate for us to, if we want to take a position on this.
So then you could say if the question came up, yes, the Finance Committee is in favor. That would be the
Right,
point.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we agree with the recommendations of Article 2. I'm not sure if that's the right language.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Second.
All right. Alan, did this go through the Economic Development Committee?
It did not. It did not at all. It went just solely through the Electric Light Department.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Usually, if you want some kind of, tax incremental financing would go through, but this hasn't asked for anything, and
Right, okay.
if they don't ask for it, we're not going to offer it. I'm not even
Certainly.
sure they would even be eligible for it.
Right, right. I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure whether or not they
Yeah.
got involved in this kind
No.
of thing.
No.
Okay. All right, Alan has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Anne. Any other discussion on this? If we aren't comfortable voting on this one tonight, we could delay a vote until immediately before town meeting.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we support that one. All
We don't-
right.
We don't have to modify the pink sheet for this, do we? Because we're not necessarily making the.
Right, the pink sheet is like
Motion,
about
yeah.
what we're appropriating money for,
Yeah,
but I
okay.
do think that the ones that
Yeah.
are,
Yeah, it's
Right.
sort of, we have it there if we're asked.
Yeah.
right, and
Well-
maybe I could put, maybe it would be appropriate to put on the letter part of the pink sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To just say that
Yeah,
FinCom has discussed and, recommends these
Yeah.
articles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I'm sure the selectmen will also note in their presentation that, the FinCom did support the article.
Mm-hmm. Then there's the Hero Act piece, Articles 3 and 4. And this is around allowing some veterans benefits. And it doesn't require any appropriation of funds, but it could potentially
It
impact
Yeah.
our revenues.
Our
Yeah.
revenues.
So these are
Yeah.
exemptions from property taxes, so it reduces a person's property tax payments, and then we compensate for that by taking the money out, basically out of the overlay account.
Yeah.
Yeah. 75,000, it's not, the type of amount that would cause really, real issues with the budget.
Right, and that's what the
Right.
overlay account is for,
Yeah.
so.
Among other
Exactly.
things, yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe there may actually be, at least the governor's proposing some additional state funding to offset it, so it's a
Yeah.
possibility, but not guarantee.
Can I make a motion that the Finance Commission, votes to, accept the HERO Act? That's Articles 3 and 4.
All right.
Second?
Thank you, Alan, and seconded by Eric. All in favor? Or did you want to?
I have to abstain.
Okay,
Tom's a veteran.
okay, all right. So all in favor?
Aye.
And then one abstention. So but that still means that FinCom approves or recommends. The direct deposit acceptance, I feel like that's not actually a financial article, that's just
No.
a housekeeping issue. But the contracts with 5-year terms, I feel like that could potentially,
Yeah, it's trying to get us better prices, which is
Right.
never a bad thing, so.
Yeah, and, they made the point yesterday, when they had the, pre-meeting, that they would have been able to get better terms in years 4 and 5 if they had the capability of doing that.
yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially as more like software systems are going to like subscription based rather than you purchase the
Yeah.
software and you keep it
Yeah.
for a period of time. So
And, and this doesn't mandate 5 years, it just gives you the flexibility of going up to 5 years.
right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
To me.
Is there a motion to recommend this?
So.
All right, we'll sit.
Second.
A motion made by Ann, seconded by Alan. All in favor? Aye. All right, that's unanimous as well. And I think that's the last one, because then the floodplain, the non-conforming uses, the kennel thing, and the multifamily residential, those are all
Yep.
clearly just straight land use.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so in our pink sheet letter, we will indicate that we recommend those articles from
Yep.
special town meeting too. Okay.
Good.
All right, any other topics for discussion? I guess I did want to talk about your recommendations for the presentation to town meeting regarding finances,
Okay.
but anything else, anybody else wants to talk about? All right, I think we're good.
That's scary.
Well, we knew this meeting was like, we scheduled it so it could be the final prep right before town
Yeah.
meeting. It wasn't
Right.
meant to be
Yeah.
a long meeting. But any specific guidance on what you'd like to see in our presentation to town meeting?
I think I'd like town meeting to know and understand that, and not simply because it's a financial policy, but it's not good fiscal policy to use large amounts of free cash, which is a one-time item. There are just so many other uses you have for free cash, and I'm just concerned that, people, since they see potentially we'll have a nice free cash balance next year, that it's like, we don't have to make any real changes to our budget or really have to dig down, because we have free cash we can use. And I think it's important that people know that, it's not gonna be, we're gonna, I think, try to hold a harder line next year.
I think it's, I heard an argument that, like, we should be careful about allocating free cash to certain things like reserve funds and things
Yeah.
like that when we're worried that we might have trouble paying the mortgage
Yeah.
next year. And I think the mortgage example is a good example to think about. I think people have an easier time understanding sort of personal finance than they do,
Yeah.
roughly $200 million budget for the town.
Yeah.
But I kind of come at it from a different way, and I think if you as a family get to the point where you realize that in order to make your mortgage payment every month, you have to dip into savings, that's an emergency right then. And you don't want to wait until the savings runs out before you make the decision to either downsize your living standards or find some way to increase, get a raise or find a side job or whatever it is you need to do. And so I think the prudent thing to do is to recognize the problem right away and
That's a
move
great,
forward.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and it's
So-
one thing if it's a one-year thing.
Right.
But it's not something you do as a permanent thing. You don't use your savings just to supplement your income, continually,
Right.
with no end. And this is, I think it also should be pointed, this is different from the override stabilization fund. That was money deliberately put away in the early years to spend in the later years. That was the plan.
Right.
This is different. This is the general savings account that we use primarily for things like, stabilization fund, but things like capital items that are smaller, shorter term, you don't want to borrow for, you want to, and that's not, we need to be able to use it for that and not use it to just balance the budget every year.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was interesting. I think when Jeff O'Neill did his presentation Monday night on the budget, and he showed that the debt service is going to be coming down a little more than $300,000 this year from last year. And I think the reason for that is the last 2 years, we've primarily borrowed those types, instead of borrowing those types of things, we've used free cash.
Exactly.
And if you use free cash in the future for some of these items, again, you're going to reduce the amount of debt service, which in turn returns money both to the general government as well as to the schools and facilities.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay. So
I think you always have to tell people things 3 times. So, we've told the selectmen the message, we put it in the letter in the budget book, you need to say it again in the presentation.
Yes.
It's the same thing,
Right.
For those who didn't listen to the selectmen's meeting and didn't open the budget book,
Sure.
here you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Yep.
right. Okay, and I think I will plan to talk a little bit more about, I know we covered it in the fall town meeting, where did all this free cash come from? And where do we recommend it goes? But I think we'll need to have
A refresh.
refresh
Yeah.
on
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
Say it again. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. All right, so I will work on, so in general, I'm planning to use graphs that are already in this budget book. The one graph that Jeff and I talked about that he made a draft of it for me, was, that isn't in the budget book, is a look at sort of a two graphs, like two columns, like this is the total operating expenses and this was the total recurring revenue for FY '23, and then the same things for FY '24, and then FY, to
I think
kind of
we
show
used to
them.
have that in there.
Yeah, the problem is that we have to present a balanced budget. And so every year we fill the hole with free cash or override stabilization or whatever it is. And so then when you look at it, it looks like everything balances.
Yeah.
Because, and the tax rate recap sheet shows that everything balances, because that's how it's supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but I think it hides how the recurring revenues are a little bit less than the recurring expenses, and then the next year it gets worse, and then the next year it gets worse. So we were playing around with graphs too.
Yeah, the lines
show
are
that.
diverging. One's going
Right.
steeper than the
Yeah.
other one. And the
Right.
thing in the
Yeah.
middle is,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the only graph that I'm planning to add that isn't already in here.
Okay. Can you, I don't know if you including it anyway, but maybe something related to the fact that certain costs which are totally out of our control, such as retirement and health insurance, are eating up such a large proportion of the additional tax revenue we're
Right.
getting.
Okay.
yeah, I think you need to sort of address the feeling that if spending is going up, therefore somehow we're doing more. And it really isn't. We're doing the same things with the same people. It just costs more every year. And it's costing, and the percentage it goes up is going up faster than the revenue.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. It's not that, oh, there's something we can just stop doing,
Right. Okay.
It's not like your, fixed rate mortgage where,
Right.
it's $5,000 a year every year, a month, or
Right.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
forever. It's
Yeah.
it's more like the cable bill that goes up, or the cell phone bill that goes up every
Yep.
year. So
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's helpful to me. I will send you all the draft. Molly, will you be able to update that pink sheet spreadsheet and send it to me and to Deborah? Deborah, I think you were hoping to get those out tomorrow,
Yeah,
right?
because we're up on the date.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll coordinate with you in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Good.
And
If
I
can
will
get
work
those
on the
out
letter
tomorrow morning,
tonight.
Awesome.
So I'll get that to you tonight. You sent me the draft from last year anyway, so it won't take long to write that up. So we'll get that out, so pink sheets can go out tomorrow.
Good.
Okay. Anything else we need to talk about?
Nope.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. We are adjourned.
Cool.